The Lakers' fracture, LeBron's message, Luka's freeze, and a franchise at the breaking point. The uncomfortable truth about pairing Luka Dončić, LeBron James, and Austin Reeves on the same court is that it doesn't frighten anyone, and that reality is aging like fine wine, albeit a deeply bitter one. When a cold-blooded assassin declines to pull the trigger at the most critical moment of a game, it signals something far more troubling than a bad shooting night. It raises urgent questions about fractured chemistry, mounting pressure, and what exactly the king may have whispered during that final timeout. However it unfolded, the temperature inside that locker room has officially reached its boiling point. On February 24, 2026, the Los Angeles Lakers, sitting at a precarious 34-22 record with their playoff lives dangling by a thread, hosted the Orlando Magic. They dominated the opening half, constructing a commanding 12-point lead and looking every bit like a legitimate contender. Then the wheels came off completely. A putback slam by Wendell Carter Jr. flipped the scoreboard, and suddenly Orlando held a 110-109 advantage with just 6.7 seconds remaining and an entire season hanging in the balance. Coach J.J. Redick called timeout and drew up what should have been the decisive play. LeBron inbound the basketball. The entire play was designed for Luka Dončić, one clean look for glory. LeBron delivered the pass. Luka caught it on the left wing, standing wide open with the three-point line directly in front of him and nothing but daylight ahead. This was precisely the kind of moment that defines superstar legacies. But Luka froze. Rather than rising and firing, he put the ball on the floor. And the instant he did, Paolo Banchero and Anthony Black converged on him like a trap springing shut. Panic set in. Luka killed his own dribble and lobbed a desperate pass back to LeBron, who was already smothered and stumbling out of bounds near the right wing. With nothing left, LeBron heaved a 27-foot prayer while fading away. Clanked off iron. The buzzer exploded. Lakers lose. The post-game press conference became a firing squad. Reporters surrounded Luka and methodically dismantled the final sequence. What did he see? Why did he hesitate? He stammered through his answers. He acknowledged being open but claimed he felt too far from the basket to shoot comfortably. He wanted just one dribble to manufacture a cleaner look. That single dribble transformed a wide-open catch-and-shoot opportunity into a suffocating double-team. He admitted he should have simply caught and fired. He conceded he should have attacked the rim rather than surrendering his momentum. Technically, he accepted responsibility, but the reporters kept digging. Luka had shot a miserable 8-for-24 that night, including a wretched 2-for-10 from three-point range. Was his hesitation genuinely about distance, or had a brutally cold shooting performance demolished his confidence? He wavered. He conceded the icy night had probably burrowed into his head. He had convinced himself 6.7 seconds was an eternity. More than enough time to engineer a better opportunity. He was correct about the clock. He was catastrophically wrong about the cost. In the fraction of a second he hesitated and killed his dribble. The defense rotated perfectly, leaving him with only one option: dumping the ball into the hands of a heavily covered LeBron James falling out of bounds. Then LeBron stepped to the podium, and the entire complexion of the story shifted. His statement was calm, measured, and surgically deliberate. He confirmed the team had created a good opportunity, that Luka came off the screen clean, and that he believed his co-star simply felt off balance on the catch. That specific detail, emphasizing Luka was clean, carried enormous weight. LeBron was effectively confirming that the screen worked, the play worked, and the player was the variable that failed. Then came the line that ignited every debate show and dominated every sports headline for the next 48 hours. "I'm not sure, you'd have to ask Luka what he saw on that, but I thought he had a good look. You'd have to ask Luka." That single sentence performed extraordinary labor. LeBron never used the word choke. He simply redirected the entire sports media universe to Luka's doorstep, cleanly separating his own legacy from his co-star's decision. He offered a sympathetic cushion. It looked like Luka lost his balance, perhaps lacked rhythm, whatever the case may be. But those excuses sounded far more like quiet indictments than genuine compassion. And before stepping back from the microphone, he delivered one final twist. "I thought he had a great look." He said it twice. LeBron never needed to say anything more explicit. Every reporter in that room received the message loud and clear. The media reaction was instant and seismic. Heavy.com labeled it blunt force trauma. Yahoo Sports accused LeBron of publicly disrespecting his co-star. Bleacher Report assembled the video clips side by side like a crime scene investigation. Skip Bayless eviscerated Luka on air, calling his explanation lousy and dismantling every element of the final sequence. Even Coach Redick couldn't provide cover, confirming plainly that the play had been designed for Luka to take that shot. The moment was his. He simply chose not to claim it. But the buzzer collapse was only the surface wound. The deeper injury was the 12-point lead the Lakers had squandered across the second half, and that meltdown is the real ghost haunting this franchise. Los Angeles had come out with genuine authority, controlling the pace and looking every bit like the 7-2 juggernaut that had emerged from the Doncic blockbuster 12 months earlier. Then Orlando refused to be buried, chipping away possession by agonizing possession until the cushion dissolved entirely. It marked a brutal milestone, the first time all season the purple and gold had completely collapsed after leading from the opening tip. The box score told the complete story. Luka finished with 24 points on that dismal 8-4-24 performance. LeBron delivered 25 points, 6 rebounds, and 7 assists with surgical efficiency. The chasm between those two stat lines encapsulates the evening entirely. LeBron allowed the game to come to him organically while Luka forced every possession, launching prayers that rattled off iron and dismantled whatever confidence remained when the game reached its most critical moment. By the time that inbound pass landed in Luka's palms, he wasn't merely holding a basketball. He was carrying the crushing weight of a 33.3% shooting night, a 20% mark from deep, and the nauseating awareness that this game should have been buried long before it required a half-court miracle. None of this existed in a vacuum. Whispers about how these two alphas could genuinely coexist had been circulating for months, ever since the February 2025 blockbuster that shipped Anthony Davis to Dallas and installed Doncic as the unquestioned centerpiece of the franchise's future. LeBron had navigated the public relations dimension masterfully throughout, calling Doncic his favorite player, declaring after a January 2026 victory over Dallas that this was unequivocally Luka's team, and constructing a gridiron metaphor for CBS Sports that branded Luka the natural-born quarterback while positioning himself as the elite wide receiver, content to operate within his co-star's system. Yet there in that press room, fresh off a gut-punch defeat, the carefully maintained narrative cracked open. The quarterback had possessed the ball with the season on the line and refused to throw, while his receiver stood open and waving in the end zone. To fully understand the scale of this implosion, it must be placed within its proper organizational context. This loss landed directly in the middle of a mediocre 4-4 home stand, with chemistry questions already boiling over and the franchise still processing a grenade that LeBron's own agent had lobbed 6 weeks earlier. That backstory is the real shadow war, fought not in hallways or locker rooms, but on hot microphones, viral podcasts, and in the front row seats of the Crypto.com arena. On January 12, 2026, Rich Paul, founder of Clutch Sports and the architect of LeBron James's empire since his Cleveland days, sat down on Game Over with Max Kellerman and pulled the pin on a grenade rolled directly into the Lakers' front office. 36 minutes in, he transformed a general roster conversation into incendiary, personalized warfare. If I was the Lakers, I would probably be targeting the Memphis Grizzlies as a trade partner for Jaren Jackson Jr., out in the open, broadcast for the entire world. Ship Austin Reeves to Memphis and bring back Triple J. Paul's logic was cold and architectural, built entirely around Luka's championship window and the defensive void left by the Davis trade. Jackson is 26, matching Doncic's age. A former defensive player of the year who contests shots at the rim, alters driving lanes, and spaces the floor. Paul's argument was simple. If the franchise is mortgaging its next 5 years on Doncic, it needs a defensive anchor who fits that timeline precisely, not another ball-dominant guard whose contributions are a pale imitation of what Luka already does at a superior level. He even framed the move as benevolent, suggesting Reeves deserved to be the featured star in Memphis and secure the maximum contract a rebuilding team could offer. Reeves is currently on a 4-year, $53.8 million deal and becomes eligible for a 5-year, $241 million extension in the summer of 2026, making the financial stakes enormous for everyone involved. Inside the Lakers facility, however, the reaction was immediate and furious. Jovan Boha reported the front office was seething, not merely at the trade logic, but at the audacity of an agent publicly auctioning off another team's player on a Netflix-distributed podcast. A team executive told Front Office Sports the power move was insane and completely effed up. The word tampering drifted through league back channels, because neither Reeves nor Jackson is even represented by Clutch Sports. The confrontation escalated from digital to physical when Reeves's agent, Reggie Berry, walked directly up to Rich Paul at the Lakers-Hawks game the very next day, January 13th, and the two squared up near half-court during the first half, cameras rolling and league officials watching every second. Paul later characterized the exchange as amicable, invoking their 20-year history. But in this league, perception functions as reality, and the optics of two rival agents negotiating a player's future on an NBA floor during a live game were absolutely devastating. When reporters cornered LeBron after the Hawks buzzer demanding a response, he delivered a precision statement built from 22 years of media experience. He established distance immediately. Rich is his own man, and what Rich says is not a direct reflection of me. Then pivoted to his bond with Reeves, pointing to their daily conversations and consistent presence beside each other on the bench. Then came the sentence he would almost certainly want to retrieve from the atmosphere. AR knows how I feel about him, and I hope Arkansas or his camp don't look at me and think this is words from me. Words from me are coming through Rich. He clearly meant to say his words were not coming through Rich Paul. The damage was irreversible. That slip validated precisely the perception he was desperately working to dismantle, that Clutch Sports and LeBron James operate as a single organism, and that whatever Rich Paul broadcasts publicly reflects what LeBron has already communicated privately. The Locked On Lakers hosts dissected the fallout with forensic precision. Andy Kamenetsky was willing to take LeBron at his word but immediately acknowledged that nearly 2 decades of seamless coordination between LeBron and Rich Paul, pressure campaigns, cryptic social posts, perfectly timed statements before critical decisions, had conditioned the entire basketball world to one foundational assumption. When Rich Paul speaks, LeBron is the ventriloquist pulling the strings. Whether LeBron personally authorized this specific proposal is ultimately irrelevant. The poison had already saturated the atmosphere, hovering over every huddle and haunting every handshake for 6 agonizing weeks. Right until the magic game arrived and everything fell apart before the watching world. The drama and the blown play are not separate storylines. They are twin symptoms of the same bone-deep structural fracture, and no diplomatic post-game interview can conceal what the cold data is screaming. Brian Windhorst laid it out on First Take with the bluntness of a coroner delivering a verdict. He identified the precise inflection point. Austin Reeves returning from injury approximately 8 games before the Magic loss, fully reassembling the trio for the first time in weeks. Then he delivered the statistic that should have extinguished every remaining flicker of optimism in that building. When Luka, LeBron, and Reeves share the floor simultaneously, the Lakers are not merely struggling or working through growing pains. They are not a good basketball team. Full stop. The numbers are bulletproof. With just Luka and Reeves sharing the court without LeBron, the Lakers look like world beaters. The ball moves with purpose, the spacing breathes naturally, and the two players find an organic rhythm that generates consistent advantages. Add all 3 simultaneously, and the team falls off a cliff, registering a staggering 20-point differential per 100 possessions. That is not a slump. That is a chasm, the difference between contending for a championship and fighting desperately to survive the play-in tournament. The paradox spirals further. When LeBron runs the offense alone, the team is elite. Luka and Reeves together, elite. All 3 combined, a disaster. Not average, actively destructive. The root cause is not complicated. It is fundamental physics applied to basketball geometry. LeBron, Luka, and Reeves are all heliocentric players who require the ball in their hands to unlock their maximum value. There is only one basketball. So when all 3 share the floor, 2 superstars inevitably become flat-footed spectators on the perimeter, while the defense reads the entire scheme effortlessly. The rhythm dies, the ball stagnates, and the offense dissolves into predictable isolation sequences that any prepared defense dismantles with ease. If the offensive dysfunction is troubling, the defensive end is where the cancer truly spreads. Luka Dončić is visibly unraveling. Through just 44 games, he had accumulated 13 technical fouls, spiking to a rate of 0.30 per night and dramatically exceeding his already volatile career averages. Arguing with officials after made baskets, contested shots, and even dead balls has become a compulsive habit that bleeds this team dry in transition. Even the Lakers' own home broadcast duo could no longer provide cover, calling it out live on air. Luka again crying for a whistle. Got to get back on defense. No team wins when its superstar is parked at half-court pleading his case while the opposition converts a 4-on-5 fast break going the other direction. Zach Lowe called Luka's behavior unwatchable and completely out of control. Max Kellerman delivered a sharper assessment, joking that Luka's future statue won't depict a jumper. It will freeze him mid-argument, arms spread wide, screaming at a referee. The tragedy is that none of this is new. This is a 7-year affliction dating to his rookie season in Dallas, persisting despite public apologies and hollow pledges to change, including a 2022 commitment to adopt Dirk Nowitzki's technique of mentally humming songs to maintain composure. The music stopped long ago. Over the past 5 seasons, Luka has accumulated 73 technical fouls, the undisputed league leader in self-destruction. That pattern is now actively corroding the defensive integrity of a roster already desperately short on stops. Compounding everything is the inevitability of time. LeBron is 41 and no longer possesses the lateral quickness to chase elite perimeter shooters the way he could 3 years ago. Reeves competes with enormous heart, but he is undersized and getting physically bullied by premier wings and forwards on a consistent basis. And the book on Luka's defensive limitations has been published for years. Heavy feet, insufficient lateral movement, and effort lapses that even his extraordinary offensive gifts cannot permanently disguise. Field all 3 simultaneously and you are presenting championship opponents with a defensive vacancy they will exploit without mercy. Oklahoma City will swarm that lineup into dust. San Antonio, with Victor Wembanyama patrolling the paint, will dismantle it methodically. Denver, with Nikola Jokic and their relentless organizational depth, will dissect it surgically across 7 games. This is precisely why the basketball world has pivoted from championship conversations to openly asking whether this team can survive April without being swept. Windhorst eventually addressed the central reality everyone in the building understood but feared to speak aloud. These 3 players simply do not fit. The chemistry is broken. It is not improving with time. And looking at the timeline honestly, next year it will most likely be just Luka and Reeves standing in the rubble together. LeBron turns 42 in December 2026, and his contract situation leaves the franchise with 0 leverage and genuine uncertainty about whether the King intends to return for one final chapter. The entire organizational pivot, anchored by the February 2025 blockbuster that dispatched Anthony Davis to Dallas, was universally praised as a franchise-defining steal at the time. But the blueprint was always constructed for the era after LeBron. He acknowledged it himself, practically handing over the keys after the January 2026 Dallas victory by declaring plainly that this is Luka's team. The front office has gone all in, consulting Doncic on roster decisions as though he were the de facto general manager, and cementing his future with a 3-year, $165 million extension signed in August 2025. Rob Pelinka, somehow surviving the regime transition under Lon Rosen, has one clearly defined job this summer: build a legitimate championship fortress around Luka Dončić that does not replicate the same redundancies currently dragging this season toward catastrophe. LeBron James didn't need a raised voice or an accusatory finger to send his message. A calm, composed statement delivered in the immediate aftermath of a 1-point heartbreaker communicated everything to Luka and to the watching world. The screen worked, the look was there, and the ball ended up back in his hands because his co-star froze and chose to pass. Whether that reflects genuine locker room friction, deliberate public accountability, or simply a 41-year-old legend quietly exhausted by losing will be written in the weeks ahead. But the fit problem is embedded permanently in the box score. The Rich Paul drama continues reverberating through the organization. There is no cavalry arriving to fix this defensive crisis. And time is not merely running short for this Lakers squad. It is running out with violent urgency, measured in every brutal loss, every moment of hesitation, and every post-game interview where the silence communicates far more than any spoken word ever could.